Think Realty Nation, it's your host, Abhi Golhar. Welcome to the Think Realty podcast. In today's session, in today's podcast, you know what we're going to talk about? We're going to talk about automation. And you are a real estate investor, and let's say you have 100 homes, or you have 50 homes, and you have to do maintenance on the homes. You've got to cut lawn. You have to do the regular stuff. How are you going to manage that process? Well, my guest today, Ken Davis from TaskEasy, has been able to figure out the formula on what you can do today to automate this and, relax a little bit. Because as a hard-working real estate investor, you get caught up in doing so many things. And you know what? Maybe you shouldn't have to. And TaskEasy can help support your entrepreneurial real estate endeavors. So that's going to be Ken Davis with TaskEasy in just a second. I do want to give a huge shout out to today's sponsor, Real Property Management, which is the largest residential property management franchise in North America, managing tens of thousands of properties for individuals, investors, and institutions throughout the country. You can learn more at realpropertymgt.com or call 888-806-7088. So we're going to have this awesome conversation with Ken, and then in the following segment, we'll talk about how to not let the new normal slow you down. I know for me, it's kind of slowed me down a little bit because I'm like a go, losing my Delta status now. Thanks, coronavirus, for helping me out with that. But here are a couple of tips. We'll talk about a couple of tips on how you don't have to slow down as much. All right, let's get to it. Ken, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You got it. So give us a little background. Who are you, what you do, and what's up with TaskEasy?
Well, I want to say most importantly, Delta sent me a note saying I'm not losing my status. So, but
you just have it better than everybody, okay? Like that's really what I've learned over the last maybe 10 minutes was talking to you. So,
well, so TaskEasy is a company that manages yard care for. At this point, we have about 800,000 properties under management. So it's a pretty large platform. It really started out with me as a hobbyist landlord. I've got a cybersecurity and mathematics background, so I don't really know how I ended up mowing lawns other than I started acquiring rental properties and I was trying to manage them myself. And I found this one particular thing to be maybe the most difficult, which was how do you get somebody to mow the lawn? And for me, the reason why it was challenging was because I found that every time I would try to search for a care provider, meet them to get bids, evaluate their capabilities, make sure that they're insured, get them out on site to do the work, and then follow up to make sure they actually did the work, and finally do all the accounting to get them paid. I had actually spent more time during that process than it would have taken me to load my lawnmower in the back of my truck and go mow the lawn myself. And I found, I just didn't think that sounded right to me. And at one point I had 84 units of rental property and I didn't have time to mow 84 lawns. I didn't have time to manage the yard care for 84 lawns. And I dug in. I created a tech platform that helps to manage the actual performance of this work. We're not exactly a marketplace. We take full responsibility for the work, and so customers hire us to take care of their yard. But we do use subcontractors to perform most or all of the work needed for the properties around the country.
What are some of the risks that say landlords like yourself face if the maintenance and the lawn care is just not handled properly?
So we were asked by the National Home Rental Council to do a study on that very thing, and we did a pilot of about 3,000 homes, looking at all the fiscal risk associated with exterior maintenance or the lack thereof. And it would take too long for the show to talk about all those results. But let me just go through a couple of things quickly. First of all, HOAs in city and counties fine homeowners, landlords for non-compliance to the regulatory environment, like is your lawn too long? And that can be very expensive. We looked at the quality of the exterior of the home, and on average, you can charge an extra between about $27 and about $150 per month to rent a home if the yard care goes from what you'd call a 1-star property to a 5-star property from that perspective. It elevates the exterior condition of the home, and it helps you rent the property faster, much faster, about 7 days faster per star grade, subjective star grade of the house. And that's all rent that you'll collect. And then maybe one of the most important things is it increases the average tenancy. So if you've got somebody living in the property and the exterior of the yard is not being cared for, your tenancy can be under 18 months on average. And if you are properly caring for the exterior of the property, your tenancy can exceed 36 months. And so there's this additional savings. And there are probably 6 or 7 other factors that we looked at and found to be quite beneficial for just caring for the property. Essentially, it pays for itself. Even though it's a very expensive maintenance service, it's one of the more expensive things that has to be done to a home. It does pay for itself.
So generally speaking, how much should I expect to pay TaskEasy to find somebody to, say, cut my lawn in Indiana? I'm assuming it's a nationwide service?
It is. Yeah, we're performing work actively in 12,000 cities.
Awesome.
So we're pretty busy. You'll pay between, call it $30 and $50 to mow a lawn on a weekly basis. It will depend largely on what other services you want. So just caring for the lawn is not the only thing that needs to be done. And if you're taking care of the fertilization and the gutter cleaning and the tree and bush trimming and the weed abatement and the sprinkler maintenance some other way, then all you need is lawn care, and we do that well. But we can also do all those other things.
Okay.
Snow clearing is another thing in the winter that you might need to take care of, and it's one of those things that if you don't pay close attention to it, it can become one of your biggest risks. If somebody that you're showing the unit to slips and falls, you can be out $100,000 without even, with a blink of an eye, because you haven't kept the snow off the sidewalks.
Yeah, and that's definitely a problem. I was born and raised in Michigan, and that happened all the time. It's like, oh, well, great, that's black ice, fantastic. That sucks.
Yep.
So why do tenants fail to handle this themselves? Is it just, oh, well, I don't own it, so whatever, it's somebody else's problem? They kick that can down the road?
Yeah, so this was part of the National Home Rental Council study we did. It turns out that when you turn that kind of maintenance over to a tenant, which is oftentimes the case when you're renting a single family home. If you're renting an apartment to somebody, you'd almost never expect them to mow the lawn. But if you're renting a single family home, you might make the bet as the owner or the landlord that you're going to save money on maintenance if you have the tenant or the resident care for the yard. The problem is they're not ultra motivated to care for the yard. They might do the minimum necessary, but it's not their home, and so they don't often feel the same kind of quality of care that somebody might feel for their own home. They won't make improvements, as an example. They're not going to go plant flowers to make it look pretty. And so if they do anything at all, they tend to just do the very bare minimum. Now, over years and years and years of watching this behavior, what we found is that on average, the exterior quality of the home, when the resident is caring for it, eventually fades to zero, meaning you're now caring for weeds and dirt. And it's absolutely consistent. It's not like we have many exceptions to this rule. On average, if you let a resident care for the property long enough, it will tend toward nothing. And that actually creates a whole new cost for the landlord, which is full replacement cost of exterior landscaping. Sodding a large lawn can be a few thousand to $10,000, and that's not something you want to have to do if you're just caring for the lawn routinely. It's not going to cost nearly that much.
So if I'm a landlord and somebody that is going into this space and thinking, okay, I'm not just going to pick up maybe 2 or 3 or 4 rentals, I'm going to pick up, like you can, I'm going to own 50, 60, 70, 80 rental units. What are some of these things that I should just have in my mind as I go through my checklist? Obviously, landscaping. What else do you recommend that investors just skip out on that they should not be skipping out on?
Oh, well, one of the more interesting studies we did was what happens if you do plant a flat of flowers in front of a rental home? Just what happens? And so we did this for a smaller random sample, not the full 3,000 properties I was talking about a minute ago. We did it for just under 100 properties. But it turns out you can rent the property faster and for more money than the cost of the flat of flowers. and so there's things like that landlords need to pay attention to in terms of the way the property looks truly matters. And this applies to other maintenance items too, ones that we don't take care of. Surely you can't rent a property if the carpets are in ill repair or the paint of the property is falling apart or the appliances are all broken. But we've decided to focus on landscaping, and it turns out it's one of the more meaty areas of improving a property and keeping a resident happy.
So what's the growth trajectory then for TaskEasy? Are you looking at additional service lines that you can do something similar that you've done for lawn care? Let's say maybe really focusing on cleaning out gutters or roofing or something else? What does the future look like?
Well, we can remain pretty laser focused on yard care for a long time, and there's still a pretty big market. We are doing an increasing number of what we call small footprint commercial properties. So gas stations have become a really big business for us.
Yeah.
Bank branches and franchisee branches have become big for us. But in the end, we're doing 800,000 of these single family homes, mostly rentals. That includes some consumer work we do, but there's 17 million single family homes for rent in the United States. Right. So we've just barely touched the tip of the iceberg here. Yeah. And then there's another 70 plus million homes that are owned by consumers, and about a third of consumers outsource their yard care, maybe a little more. And I think that number is growing. I think more and more, as people have constricted a little bit during the pandemic, trying to preserve their cash, maybe they're mowing their own lawn a little more. But that number was really on the climb, meaning people were recognizing that their time is money and they want to outsource these types of services. And so we do a lot of work for consumers.
Awesome. So when it comes to just the last gold nugget for real estate investors that are interested in using TaskEasy and those that are just consumers that want to use TaskEasy, what's one gold nugget? What can we do to reach out? How do we get started with you? What's the next step?
So, TaskEasy.com, we've got a variety of paths for different types of property owners, whether you're a consumer or a real estate agent or a landlord or a big single family rental company or an iBuyer. Like, we've got paths for all of those that help them through the process. And I should have answered your previous question a little more directly. We've launched our fastest growing segment right now is what we refer to as sales cleans. Okay. And so what happens is when you're showing a property, particularly in a COVID era, you need to make sure you're sanitizing the property regularly as you have people coming through the property. Yeah. And it can be sometimes as simple as just cleaning up the muddy footprints from people and maybe whatever somebody blew up in the microwave, or it can be a more deep clean. But that's become our fastest growing new segment of services that we're offering to our clients.
Incredible. Well, Ken, congratulations on all the success so far. It's been fun connecting with you and just understanding that, holy cow, like you really can, if you put your mind to it, you really can provide an incredible service across the board for real estate investors that want to scale. And real estate investors also need to know that if you neglect the small things, it has a pretty dramatic impact on your bottom line long term. So Ken, thanks so much for the time. I certainly appreciate your insights.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Think Realty Nation, the next segment is brought to you by Clint Coons of Anderson Business Advisors, nationally recognized for providing bulletproof asset protection, tax, and business strategy advice to real estate investors. Go to getbulletprooftoday.com and receive his book titled Asset Protection for Real Estate Investors for free while supplies last. So let's get to it. There was an article that was written by Bruce McNillage on Think Realty titled "Don't Let the New Normal Slow You Down." And what's interesting about this article is I feel like I've been slowed down a little bit, and that's been really challenging for me. Clearly not for Ken, because Delta loves him and they're keeping his status. Why they're not giving me my status back yet, I still have no idea. So Delta, I'm coming for you. But that being said, I really appreciate Bruce's thoughts here because, one, he talks about how some of the economic challenges will drive more people to rent, which is actually, I agree with this, and it's so true. Quote, let's look at how COVID-19 is likely to accelerate the percentage of consumers who will rent. Before the virus, millennials were getting older and looking for a home with 4 walls and a yard, but now these millennials have a significant amount of school loan debt, which prevents them from buying a house. Their credit probably isn't where it needs to be, and they have too much debt on the books. So they still need to rent, right? That's kind of important. And if you're the real estate investor that can get in and provide that housing for these millennials, then you're winning. Number 2, oh man, this is good. Number 2, lenders always get more risk adverse in the downtimes, which is true. They've gotten more conservative. Nationwide, institutional lenders have become more conservative in their underwriting. Now, this is also truly important, but it also means that there's still deals out there to be had. If you want to be a little more aggressive, you can be. So instead of lending at 70% or 75% of cost, you can lend at 80 and still win a lot of business. And there are still a lot of investors that are still looking for those newer programs that are slightly more aggressive than the 70, 75% of cost. And if you can do that, and you can lend that capital to these investors, you're also winning. Homes will always be a good investment. His third bullet point, homes will always be a good investment. And if you believe, my fundamental belief is this. If you believe in the United States of America as a country and the economy, then always buying single-family real estate, buy smart, but if you buy single-family rental real estate, you're going to win long-term. And just like our guest Ken today, he's amassed a portfolio of 80-plus rental properties. I'm pretty sure he's smiling from ear to ear long-term because his wealth is skyrocketing. And the same for you if you're a long-term real estate investor. If you're a flipper, you want to make sure that you have some of these things keyed in so that you are building your own single-family residential real estate portfolio for that long-term wealth gain. So take a couple of those tips. If you do want to check out this article, I highly recommend it. Bruce is a really good friend of mine, and he has some really good insights. You should also follow him on LinkedIn. But you want to check it out. Don't let the new normal slow you down on thinkrealty.com. That wraps up the show for today. If you want to get in touch, head on over to thinkrealty.com. You can also find me anywhere online at Abhi Golhar. And this show, I cannot give enough of a shout out to today's sponsor, who is Real Property Management, which is the largest residential real estate property management franchise in North America, managing tens of thousands of properties for individuals, investors, and institutions throughout the country. You can learn more at realpropertymgt.com or call 888-806-7088. Think Realty Nation, it's been fun. Until next time, happy investing.